Hello, this is Koji from Celestial Rhythms, and we are at a very powerful moment in time. We are really at that place where the wave just will start breaking, where big changes will come in, and actually those of you who followed the news already know that is all lined up. So let's start here with the full moon of May 7, which is just a couple days ago, and we had Sun and Moon in this powerful axis of hexagram 2 and hexagram 1, 1 being the creative force of the universe, hexagram 1, 6 yang lines, Earth and the Moon in here during full moon. That definitely set the stage for some really big energetic moves to come, and no question something seems to be lined up here with the critical 29th degree of Taurus rising, Sedna here hugging the ascendant in the American capital. Sedna, the planet which has been having a very strong influence in the last few months, the planet of lockdown, of restrictions, of social distancing, if you want, together with Saturn, and also the one which I showed you in an earlier post or podcast, which pretty much is at the center of this pandemic, as it was conjunct with Hygeia for months on end here, when before Hygeia turned moving direct again in February. So this in the early stage of the pandemic, I call it, I guess you understand, that was Sedna, which played a strong role. So in this chart, I just wanted to show also Uranus very strongly placed here, exactly squaring the midheaven and the midnight axis. We're in for a big surprise, coming out of an unknown angle, kind of a blind spot, the 12th house where also the Sun is and Mercury, and actually Uranus is right at the midpoint of Aries and Sun and Mercury. That is a great combination of energies which brings clarity, enlightenment, insight. Aries being the one which throws in the dice, the golden apple of discord, as the story goes, bringing all the conflicts into the open so they can be fully resolved. That's the deeper issue Aries has. Very powerful, this square of these very slow planets, which will be exact for the next 2 years between Aries and Pluto, one of the big signs of times. So this is the midpoint chart of this full moon of the 7th with the American chart, and here we have Saturn very prominent up in midheaven. Saturn, the rule of law, giving a clear new voice, and we know already all the revelations, all the disclosures. The American Uranus is up here in their birth chart at 855 Gemini. Actually, it's in this axis at the 4th house cusp. Then we have here a Sun-Pluto conjunction in the midpoints, which is really that power struggle coming to a climax. And as we know, the breakthrough just happened a couple days ago with Flynn's Flynn being discharged from all the crimes and well, I'm missing the word, you know what I mean, exonerated, I guess that's the word. So in this midpoint chart, we see a few really powerful things. There is this black moon which just entered Cancer. That's now probably about 10 days ago when this line was crossed, in a clear, exact square to Jupiter. Another sign of a huge story being spilled out into the open, and Jupiter in Libra, close to the American nation's midheaven, which is at 2 degrees Libra, will actually arrive here in the midpoint chart by early July. So by early July we already know then there will be the big first stage accomplished, I should say. Now I want to just throw in a couple other things here which I just learned from Magenta PISCES channeling the 9, which that group of entities. It's a group soul which gives us very clear reflection of where we are and great guidance. I suggest you listen to her if you are not familiar with it. Anyway, they say we're just at a very critical point here by this full moon, and which is pretty much the beginning of that next big stage which will last 13 months. And in 13 months, by June 2021, they tell us the world will be in a very different place, and they say it's not a possibility anymore at this time, it's an eventuality. It's just a matter of it being fully rolled out step by step. Everything is already very clear, the whole steps are lined out, and by June 2021 the world will be totally upside down from where it is. All these dark powers will be taken out, will be removed, and then they say it's about a 3 to 5 year transition period before we are fully arrived in the new age, in that new timeline of total abundance. The 9 also say something else very interesting. They were talking about that before, the merging of different timelines. They say normally timelines would move in parallels like rails, but they say in this unique time we're at in a spiraling motion, and all these timelines move in the center of the spiral. So it's what they call a singularity event we are heading toward, and I already mentioned that in one of my earlier podcasts. This whole experience globally we all have been going through, that we were in the same place of being locked into our houses, not being able to see our friends, not being able to go to work. At least a big number of people was affected with that. I guess pretty much everyone. So already this has been kind of an adjustment of timelines. We were experiencing the same thing, so these timelines are merging ever further. We, the people of this planet, will get onto the same page. That's what it basically means, that we all will have the one same experience. We will be sharing the same understanding, and that convergence of timelines is just about starting to get to a few levels more intense, I would say, and I will show you why. Let me just go to the next chart here, which is the Sun transiting that important degree, 18 degrees 52 minutes 30 seconds of Taurus. That is here, and the Earth in step, because the Earth is always at the opposite end of the zodiac, the Earth in Scorpio, which in itself tells us that this is an intense month, and it's a 9 month, so a month of completion. That means it's the 5th month in a 4 year. If you add the 2020, you get the 4, so 4 plus 5 is a 9. So that also means that when you then add the day number, for example, today is the 8th of May. So if you add the 4 of the year, the 5 of the month, you get the 9, and 8 is a 17. The 17 again is an 8. So the day number is amplified all through the month of May. Whenever we are in a 9 month, and that changes every year, the day numbers are very powerful. So today the frequency 8 has been very prominent. Yesterday was a 7 and the full moon, which was interesting in itself. But a 7 as being a number which rearranges everything, which looks at things in a different way, which has that ability to stand on the side and look at everything from above. The 8 is fully involved, and on this 8th day now we move into a new energy. The Sun coming from hexagram 1 into hexagram 23, which is collapse, and Earth coming out. I'm saying it wrong, actually it's the Sun moving out of hexagram 2 of the receptive into 23 collapse, and Earth on the other hand, where full moon was in hexagram 1, the creative is now heading into hexagram 43, which is breakthrough. Now this is a very powerful opposition, and I'll show you why. I'm just showing you here the human design chart for a minute for this configuration. Hexagram 43 and 23, which is kind of a rare occurrence, form a complete channel. The channel of from freak to genius. It's the central connection between the ajna center and the throat center. And now this is a global thing, as it's the transiting energies. Everybody experiences that in the same way, which is an ability to transmit clear insight into powerful language. So that means everybody on the whole planet for 6 days, as long as the Sun is in that hexagram 23 and Earth in 43, that is between May 9 and May 14, there is this heightened ability to understand and realize and integrate what we see with what we manifest, because the throat center is the center of manifestation. So I would like to make a little detour here, also mention the nodes naturally. The nodes have changed on May 5, just 3 days ago. That's all very new. It's such a wild energies time. Everything seems to be accelerated. We're moving at lightning speed. And as I say, that transmission by Magenta Pixie, I strongly encourage you to listen to it. She says that, I mean, that's the 9 talking through her, and they say the next 13 months really will bring the big changes, and we are right at the cusp of that, and I tell you why. It's this energy of breakthrough and of collapse of the deep state, breakthrough into a new perspective, I would call it. All the deceptions are just falling down like dominoes. It might take a little while till everybody sees it, but next week we're expecting some really big events to take place, which I'm expecting, actually I'm not the only one, some high level indictments to be released. People high up in the former administration being brought into the limelight and being criminally investigated for their involvement in that whole coup against a sitting president. And as you know, I mean, these are crimes which are very severe. They can be punished with the death penalty. We will see where it goes. Justice has to be served. Justice for everyone in the same way is the foundation for a better future. That's where we have to start. So I just tell you here a little more about what I see if we look into the midpoint chart between that moment when Sun and Earth changed into this configuration, into this direct perception of reality. If you do the midpoint chart between that moment and the American chart, you get this powerful chart, which is dated June 6, 1898. That's the exact time-space midpoint. It's the hinge. And you see the planet Eris, which I just talked about, that one which froze in the golden apple, as the story goes, breaks all the conflicts open, brings it into the limelight. It was this goddess, and according to Greek myth, which caused Trojan Wars, because there was this hidden animosity between them. It was not really spoken out. So Eris bringing that all into the open, and it needed that war to be fought to get a more stable and more clear structure, and I would guess also a better place for the people. As it goes, if struggles are fought out, the air is cleared, everything looks much better afterwards. Now, it is interesting that this is exactly opposing the American nation's Neptune. So we can expect quite a bit of confusion to start with, particularly so as also midpoint Neptune is squaring that axis. So there will be lots of head scratching and just people standing there with open, with the jaws hanging down, you could say, just in disbelief what just took place. It will take a lot of explaining, a lot of help from people who already know, who have followed the whole storylines which were not reported by mainstream media, which now will have to be reported. So, I mean, you see that's all kind of where we're at. We're at a really amazing moment in history. So, this is then when the moon enters Sagittarius, which is actually was happening early this morning. I just thought this chart was interesting too, because each time the moon changes signs, there's a subtle adjustment of energies. And those of you who follow me know that also at 19 degrees 28 is the American black moon. So, I mean, we are really in the middle of it. This is just getting more intense by the hour, this whole play. Then on Sunday, that is, on May 10, the moon will enter Capricorn, taking it a level deeper, grinding a level stronger. And by Monday, early morning, 009 Eastern Daylight Time, Saturn, being the first of these three planets to turn direction, and while Saturn here at 157 Aquarius, a little off, you have to kind of think these lines go back here. Saturn at this position, coming to a still stand at that 0 point, igniting a 5-month period of Saturn's energy going internally. I mean, that's the big change when planets move forward. It's kind of the outward motion. We're reaching out, growing to new territory, new dimensions, and then when the moment comes when standstill of these apparent standstill, I should say, that's always because we move to on Earth, we cause that to appear. So anyway, when planets then appear to move backwards, that's when the energy goes into its depth, when we work on what we have so far explored and then tie all the loose ends, bring all the things in accordance. So the whole next 5 months will be ruled by this Uranus at the 4th house cusp. Uranus again, you might remember, we talked of Uranus quite a few times in the last 15 minutes or so. So Uranus, planet of surprise, shock, sudden, unexpected turns of corners. Interesting also, Mercury here closely aligned with Saturn again. So we're really taken on a roller coaster here for the whole next few days. And then the big shift in energy will be when Mercury enters Gemini, and that will be on Monday evening, 6 p.m. And I will give you more insight what's starting to happen then in the second part of this. So thank you for joining and listening, and I will just continue with part 2.